Hi there. I'm
Hi.
Dr. Boone. I am the director of Ohio State ATI, and I have with me today Dr. Shad, who is our mental health counselor on the Worcester campus. And we wanted to talk a little bit today to help you better understand a lot of the services that Dr. Shad offers, as well as kind of the larger services that are offered in the university and how those things can really help you succeed as a student. So, Dr. Shad, can you explain what counseling and consultation services or CCS is at Ohio State and what they provide and how you relate to that?
Absolutely. So, hello, everybody. Nice to be here with you today. So, CCS, or Counseling and Consultation Services, we provide individual and group therapies to all enrolled students, so undergraduate and graduate students. And then we also do things like psychoeducation or outreach prevention to our larger campus community as well. We do a lot of different kind of programming based on need level for students. So, some students have some minor things to some larger things, and we kind of intervene at all levels as necessary. And what's great about my position here within OSU ATI is that I'm connected to our larger CCS, or the CCS, if you will, in Columbus, which means we work very closely together and our students have access to the same services that Columbus students do virtually. So that includes things such as workshops, which range from working on anxiety, balanced living, focus, time management, perfectionism. Some different groups are offered virtually as well. And so we have connection to those types of services too for our students here on this campus.
Do other students join virtually, or is it just ATI students that would join virtually?
And any student. So some students just prefer that kind of modality.
Mhm.
And so we keep some groups that way for that reason. They may have a busier schedule. They're, could be commuting just like some of our students commute too. So it can be a mix of Columbus and Worcester students.
Okay. So how does a student then access CCS and all the different things it has?
Yeah. So when we kind of think about how you enter into our system, there's
Mhm.
three main entry points, if you will. So Let's Talk is kind of one entry point. So Let's Talk is a drop-in service. It's the closest thing we have to kind of walk-in brief therapy. And so how that works is all of it, not all of us, but most of us at CCS have some drop-in hours. There's your little 20-minute appointments that you sign up for online, and you can kind of search by provider. So if you want to meet with me, you can search for me. If you want to meet with someone with different identity variables, or perhaps my counterpart in Columbus, you can search for him as well. And then you sign up for that spot with your OSU ID. And in that time, you can kind of talk to us about anything. It could be how to access services past this point. It could be I'm having a roommate issue. Like, what do you think of this? It could be, I'm scared to come to therapy. What are your thoughts? How can I get connected? Or if you just need connected to other resources like disability services, like how do you do that? We're happy to get you connected in any way through kind of that process. So that's option one. It's kind of this drop-in service there. The main option is what we call a phone screening. So you sign up for it the same way. So you can sign up on our website, and you pick your screening time basically, and you can search for me or others as well, just like the Let's Talk. And it's about 15-20 minutes where whoever you selected, the counselor will call you. And we just kind of talk to you about what's going on. And really, we're just trying to figure out what services might be best for you, whether that's with us, whether that's with someone else, and just kind of getting you connected to where you need to go and kind of explaining services. That's option two. Option three is what we call kind of an urgent or 24-hour crisis care access, those types of things. So let's say, you can't wait for a Let's Talk. You can't wait to do your phone screening. You're kind of having an emergency, like you need to talk to someone right now. So you can always call. We're always open in one sense or the other. So if we're calling during the day, you'll call our front desk staff will answer, and you'll say, like, I need to talk to someone today. And so at that point, if someone is available right then, they will talk to you then, or we'll have someone call you back that day and kind of assess what's going on and help you get connected. Same thing if you were to call after hours, there's an option to then talk to a counselor after hours as well and kind of get you connected that way. So 3 points are let's talk, a phone screening, or kind of a same day urgent appointment.
Okay. Now, if they were in a crisis where they felt like they needed something immediately, we should just contact 911. Is that correct?
We contact 911 if we feel like, I'm trying to think of if we're in immediate danger of some sort.
Yeah.
If we
Okay.
are, like we need to go to the hospital, or we're just like not okay at all. And urgent is more like something that's happened, like maybe you just had a panic attack. You've never had one before. You have no idea what's going on. You're like, oh my gosh, I need to talk to someone, or kind of something like that. You can also call if you're in a crisis, absolutely, and we'll help you get connected, or say like, hey, we think you should call. This is an instance where we would call 911. Right, we're always going to guide you through that process too, if needed.
Okay.
And we always do an assessment in those kind of situations of this is what we think you need.
Okay. Okay. Once a student has accessed CCS, then what are the next steps? What does that process look like?
Sure. So if most of the time, if you're going to be working with me, I contact you directly. So let's say you did your phone screening with someone else. I'm going to reach out to you. You'll identify yourself as a Worcester student. And so they're always going to try to connect you with me first, since I'm your person there on campus. But you still can see other people if that's what you wish. And so then I will contact you via email and say like, hey, I'm reaching out to schedule our first appointment. There's some paperwork that I send electronically. And then we just kind of schedule from there based on, what works best for our schedules. That part is pretty simple. If you're going to be seen by a Columbus person virtually, sometimes that looks a little bit different because they operate what kind of like on an assignment list. So it might they'll always tell you in that appointment, like, oh, you'll hear from someone in 1 to 2 weeks, or whatever the wait time is for the first available counselor to call you.
So what are some of the most common reasons you hear from students who are accessing CCS?
So we see people for everything, but I would say our most common, which is pretty typical for all of college campuses. We have depression, anxiety, relationship concerns, academic kind of related issues, and trauma. But we see all of it. We are a brief term model, but we also help bridge care. So let's say we're not able to get you into a specialist or a community provider that we need you to see for whatever's going on. We will help bridge that gap and see you kind of in the interim until we get you connected. We're always going to get you to where you need to go. Also things like transitioning to college, like that's a big one, I feel, on our campus, especially. It can be a big adjustment, homesickness, sometimes alcohol use, different types of things. Trying to think if there's anything, adjustment in general, social things going on as well. So really everything underneath there.
It's funny when you say that, because I experienced a lot of that when I first went to college, like a lot of that anxiety and, just some intense homesickness and things like that, where just really was, and I wish I would have known to reach out to someone. So yeah, I like that you are here for our students, but also that, you kind of let us know what some of those common ones are. That's really helpful. What are some reasons that students might be hesitant, or in your experience where students sometimes might not, maybe it's not just CCS, it's more like counseling services in general. What may they be a little hesitant to come or to reach out?
I think a lot of times there's stigma involved, especially in more rural areas as well. And just like a lack of familiarity with counseling and what it looks like, what to expect. And most of our students, it's their first time reaching out. And so they just don't know what's going to happen. So we always try to give a really solid referral, like, Dr. Schott is the person, not just, there's someone here for you. I think other times, we see a lot of people might not think they're, quote, I don't know if you can see my quotes, bad enough to come in. Right. They don't want to take resources from someone else, or they'll think maybe this will pass, or it's not serious enough, or maybe a therapist can't help with this. And so that's when we're always trying to break down, like, you can come in for one visit, or multiple, right? Like even if it's just a one time you're struggling and it could just be helpful to talk to someone for that 20-minute drop-in, whatever it may be, you know, and we're going to talk to you about, you know, if we think services are right for you and if there are other things available that might be better fit. Other things like how to pay for it. So people who don't know, our services are free for students, which is wonderful. So cost can be a barrier when people, I think, typically think about therapy, they think, oh, it's expensive. In the community, it can be. And then confidentiality. So, you know, we are tied with the university. So sometimes there's fears about who can see their records, if it's part of like their educational record or not. A lot of times people are scared about what they might disclose and if that means we might have to tell other people. So, I mean, we just do a lot of psychoeducation when I come to campus and like talk to larger groups about, you know, what is confidential, what is not. And so really all of our services are confidential and there's very few things we would break confidentiality for, which are mainly related to risk or harm to other people or self. But other than that, it's not tied to your educational record. No one knows you came in unless that permission is given by the student. So I think that, or their parents knowing, that's
I bet.
They don't want their parents knowing they're coming in. So
Sure. Yeah. So even if they have a waiver on some of their academic records or their financial records, this is not tied to those at all. So
not at all. So it's treated just like medical records. We kind of do an up standard of really wanting to keep that separate and private.
Yeah. Okay. Other than the cost and the confidentiality, are there other questions that kind of come up sometimes or that are common?
I think those, I mean, the other one I was just talking about, if they don't feel, you know, services might be right for them or they just don't know what to expect. I mean, overall, I think it's just, a lot of it just comes from fear, you know, just not knowing and being worried about how they might be seen, you know, coming to therapy. It's it's hard to reach out for help in general. Especially I think when you work with a prideful community, you know, and really independent and wanting to do things on their own and those types of things. So I think that's another kind of barrier that comes up sometimes.
Yeah. Well, if there's anything I'd like to tell the students is that asking for help doesn't mean you're not strong. You know, it means actually you're strong enough to make yourself a little vulnerable. So that's a strength in my book anyway.
Oh yeah.
What advice would you have for a student who's transitioning from high school in hometown to our campus and our community? Or ways to make themselves feel more comfortable on campus?
So many things.
So many things.
So many things. All the things. So, I mean, for most of our students, this is a pretty big transition. Even if they're coming from like a smaller hometown or an equivalent size, you know, it's your first time, most of our students being away from home, excuse me. It's going to be their first time like interacting with different people that may not be the same as them. A lot of these experiences are new and exciting, but even though they're new and exciting, they're also scary. You know, change is hard, no matter even if it's positive change. They're probably doing a lot of things on their own. So, you know, on our campus, we have basically little apartments and not dorms. So it's a different kind of transition in that way. They have access to cook their own foods, you know, like how do they get groceries, those types of things. So lots of adjustments in that way. And so typically when any new student comes, we recommend they stay on campus for, I mean, if I had it my way, I'd say at least a month, like don't go home for a month. Because what happens when we kind of stay and invest in our own environment, right, that starts to feel more like home and more like our community, and we get more connected to the people and the events that are happening. And so it kind of can ease that homesickness a bit, versus if they travel home a lot, that kind of can reinforce that homesickness. And so it's really great to kind of just dive in and stay for that first month. I think I mean, I kind of already mentioned this, but just getting involved in anything they can. So we have a lot of great events put on by Student Life, by housing. And so the more things you can kind of get involved in, the more like the space is going to feel like yours.
Mhm.
And you'll feel like a Buckeye, and you'll feel like this is part of your community, and you'll own kind of the space.
Yeah.
Hanging out in common spaces on campus, so
Mhm.
dining areas. We have disc golf, like we have all types of really cool places on campus. The Arboretum is really cool to walk around. And so kind of using those spaces to meet people, forming study groups is also a great way to meet other students. And it's a great resource to kind of help each other out.
Mhm.
If you live with a roommate, utilizing your roommate, kind of, track out your classes, before, like, where you're going to go, how are you going to get there, so you feel comfortable. The more you're in a space, the more comfortable you're going to feel in that space. I think maybe just being open-minded to the experience. College is different than high school in lots of ways, not only just independence and freedom, but also the academic rigor. And so someone coming in before who was a straight A student who might struggle, that's also very common. And kind of like getting connected to resources, whether that's, they can get connected to the Dennis Learning Lab, our resources on campus with our lab, and just being gentle with yourself through the transition, because it can be hard, and that's to be expected. We have bigger expectations on ourselves for managing our schedule for the first time. Bells aren't ringing to tell you where to go. So really being organized as well, and kind of setting yourself up for success through that.
Yeah, that makes, and actually, as I reflect back on my first time in college too, it was the same thing. I came out of high school, I was, I had real good grades and all that stuff. And ooh, I was not ready. So that was pretty stressful. So I can see that. If I want to prevent having mental health issues, what should I do? I mean, for me personally.
Yeah. So I think when I think about probably the most important thing you'll hear me talk about is self-care. So I'll kind of work all that in. So one, you need a good schedule. Okay. And I don't mean like your classes schedule, but like when you're going to be doing things, scheduling out time for meals, for studying, for free time, and having all those things built into your schedule. Just really, and I start off the semester right. When you get those syllabi, enter those dates into a planner, a calendar, a whiteboard, your phone. I don't really care, but you have to have it somehow managed for you, to kind of keep you on track. And then scheduling time for self-care. So self-care means a lot of things to a lot of different people. However, it doesn't have to be, taking a bath every day. It doesn't have to be this kind of elaborate, which is what I think a lot of people think of, like, let me take a bubble bath. But it's like getting outdoors. It's, purposeful time with friends, calling home and talking to your parents. That might be self-care for you too. And so self-care is always going to work best when you do it preventatively, meaning we don't want to wait until like it's right before midterms. We are so stressed. We're like falling behind. We're worried about what we're going to get. It's our first time having a test in this class. And then we're like, oh, let me do some self-care when I'm already stressed. Yes, it'll be helpful. All self-care is helpful, but it's more helpful if we routinely work those things into our schedule so that we're protecting our mental health, not just kind of fixing it when we're stressed, but kind of thriving, really. So those two things, like really like setting your schedule. And if we fall off track, reaching out for help, whether that's, academic help, whether that's mental health help. I mean, all the help you can get, talking to your professors, whatever it may be. If you're falling behind, don't wait. So much wait. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's all types of, there's other students on campus too that they're excellent planners. They can help you even with your planners. Study groups are the best because you get to meet people and you have someone holding you accountable to studying, to, if you're struggling with something, they might understand a concept better than you did. And so you can kind of balance each other out. And then self-care, 110%.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I love those combined kind of things. If I saw someone or I had a sense someone was having some mental health issues, I'm not a counselor. So what should I do? And how do I talk to them?
So normally I would have, if, we're talking about a student to a student, if you see something that's going on, it's really helpful to point out what you see. So like, oh, I noticed you haven't been in class. or, oh, I've noticed, you've seemed sad or kind of withdrawn or whatever, just kind of labeling the behavior and saying like, this is different than how I've experienced you before. So this is why I'm checking in and
Mm-hmm.
why I'm asking.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if that person responds to that question and they're like, yes, I'm struggling, the only thing you really need to do is just listen. They're not most likely telling you anything to have you solve a problem. I think we've all had someone in our lives at some point where we have something going on and we call them and we're like, just want to vent, right? And the person's like, well, have you done this or have you done this? And I'm like, no, don't solve my problems. I just need someone to listen, right? And to that point, you're not a therapist. It's not your job to assess or to counsel in any type of way, but it's great if you can get them connected to that person, right? So just listen, reflect back what you're hearing, like, oh, wow, it sounds like you're really struggling, or, oh, wow, it sounds like you're really anxious, or sounds like you're really having a hard time with chemistry, and just reflecting back what you're hearing and say, then have you heard about Dr. Shaw on campus? And so when we make a referral to any mental health service, whether it's me or someone else, the more specific you can be with the referral, the more likely it is the person will follow through. So if you can say, here's Dr. Shaw, like, oh, I have her email. Let me copy you on this email and, send it to you. Or, do you want to call the after hours number together? I can sit here with you while you do that. And then check up to see if they follow through, right? So like, oh, last week we talked about Dr. Shaw. Did you happen to talk to them? And, and don't push it. Like you can't make someone go who doesn't want to go or who's not ready. But, following up lets them know like, hey, I'm thinking of you. I'm still caring. I hope you got connected.
Okay.
So specific referral, listening, and just pointing out what you notice.
That makes that, yeah, because that way it's not like, man, you seem weird, right?
Yeah.
It's that, gosh, you missed some classes and that doesn't seem like what you normally do.
Yeah. Or like someone who's always raising their hand, answering all the questions, and now they're silent. Like, oh, that's different than how you were before.
So at this point, I'd also like to bring in David Wirt. David is also associated with our college and mental health counselor. He's based on the Columbus campus. And so when a student, for those students who transition, they're going to have, someone on the Columbus campus for them too, if they go from Worcester to Columbus. For the students who are planning to go to Columbus, how do they access CCS? And will folks in Columbus know what some of their concerns have been if they've had previous interaction with CCS?
Yeah, and thanks for having me here. Hi, Dr. Boone. Hi, Dr. Shaw. Hi, Buckeyes out there listening. Yeah, my name is David Wirt. Like you said, I'm the embedded clinical therapist here at CFAS Columbus, and I'm located in Agriculture Administration 100. I am in the Academic Services Suite, which is in the building that has the CFAS library. So I'm just upstairs in the coffee counter and library up there. And as far as students accessing CCS, Dr. Shaw has done a nice overview of how CCS works. And what I would tell you is if you've interacted with Dr. Shaw on the CFAS Worcester campus, if you've attended a Let's Talk, if you've been a part of one of our workshops or listened to our Psych Bites or been part of our group, you already are using CCS in Columbus, and you can continue to do so. We do record some interactions. We don't record all, but for example, if you've attended therapy or group sessions, those will contain clinical notes, and Dr. Shaw and I are on the exact same clinical system. So your medical records with Dr. Shaw are also contained here, and we can look at those even simultaneously if we need to.
That's really helpful. Can you talk about how you two work together?
Sure. This is an example right now. Thanks to Carmen Zoom, we can literally click in and here we are. But Dr. Shaw is just as much part of the CCS team as I am. And we both regularly attend meetings with the full staff. The full staff supports our services as well. You could see either one of us or any of the staff at CCS, especially via teletherapy if you need to from CFAS Worcester. We serve on committees together. We serve on the same treatment team. I don't know if I said consultation yet, but Dr. Shaw and I consult on many things throughout the year. I can think of many examples right now, but none specific are coming to mind.
Well, in addition, I think about, a student who started at Worcester and maybe we've worked together and maybe they do want to transition to a therapist in person in Columbus, but still want to see me for a little bit too. That's absolutely fine. So we, would regularly consult. I would, call and say like, I have a client who's coming up to Columbus. I'm going to see them for a few sessions and they really like to transition and kind of here's what I'd like that to look like, or here's what we've talked about. And so we work in that way. So we share clients at times. We do kind of joint presentations. We advertise our services together because we really are CFAES. I mean, so those kind of, we know about those majors, we know about, the stakeholders, all those kind of things. And we're used to those similar kind of students who, have grown up on farms and like they know what they're, they know what they're doing and their unique kind of struggles too, right? I mean, getting up every morning at 4 a.m. is no joke. They have different kind of expectations, I think, and they have a really hard work ethic. And so we really are a team in that way. And, if I was busy or out, like we would each cover each other in any type of way. We're all part of that kind of bigger system. And so a student would never kind of fall in the cracks or be missed or not have access to somebody if they really needed us.
That's very true. We do cover for each other as well. I'm even thinking, I know we're talking to undergraduate students today, but it goes back and forth. Sometimes I've had graduate students that I work with here in CFAS Columbus that then we'll go up to CFAS Worcester to do some research, and Dr. Shaw may take over and work with them there. So when you're a member of CFAS, you're a member of CFAS no matter where you're located.
Do you have any kind of final thoughts as we summarize this and present it to students? I think that a couple of takeaways that I have is that you really want to meet students where they are, and that it's as seamless as it possibly can be, and that there are great supports here. And there's nothing there. It's good to take care of your mental health. Anyway, that's just kind of some of the thoughts that came to mind for me.
I have one. Okay. So I think that often I'll hear students, or after I work with students, I hear them say something like, I just wasn't sure if this was something I could talk to a therapist about, or I just wasn't sure like if I should go. And my answer is that if you ever think, oh, would this be helpful to talk to a therapist about? The answer is yes. It's always yes. I'd always rather you lean to yes than no, and be without kind of some support. And, even if it's just one time, I think students are, oh, I'm going to have to go every week for, the rest of my life. And I'm just like, no, like we can, problem solve and be a support to you whenever you need. And so, yes, just if you're thinking to yourself, but it might be helpful to talk to Dr. Shaw about this. The answer is yes, please.
I'm echoing that entirely. Everything you just and if you're still not sure, and if you want to kind of dip your toe in the water and talk to somebody, and you have questions, and you don't want to, sign up for something and have an official record yet, sign up for a Let's Talk, either with Dr. Shaw or myself. I'm happy to talk for Let's Talk with CFAS Worcester students as well. Anyone at CCS will do that. But that's a great way to come in, ask your questions, kind of get the lay of the land, see what you need. That's why we have Let's Talk. And that's the most common thing students will do with that. So please don't be afraid to jump in. The other thing is I will be seeing most of you when you come down to CFAS Columbus as well. So I'll see you when you get here, and you'll meet me again and ask questions when you have them. That's the perfect time to be doing that.
Thank you both. I really appreciate this. And I know our students do too.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.